48 past the hour. New insight today about the role Latino voters had in the election of Donald Trump. ProPublica reports that Latino support for Trump may have been driven in part by Latino immigrants, many of whom have been in the U.S. for decades. As ProPublica reported, over and over again, they spoke of feeling resentment as they watched the government ease the transition of large numbers of asylum seekers into the U.S. by giving them access to work permits, IDs, and in some cities, spending millions of dollars to provide them with food and shelter. With us now is Melissa Sanchez, one of the ProPublica journalists behind that reporting, and former Florida Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo. Melissa, you and your colleagues spoke with dozens of long-time immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and legal immigrants in the Midwest and along the Texas border. How deep is that frustration?
You know, almost everybody that I spoke with in my reporting and then in my personal life, I live here in Chicago, who is Latino, whose parents are immigrants or are immigrants themselves, either express this resentment or have relatives who feel this way. So I think it's pretty overwhelming. It's not the driving force for every single person I talk to in terms of who they ultimately decided to vote for. But I think it's something that everybody is very intimately familiar with, this feeling of this new group of people got something that we didn't get when we got here.
You know, for so many, Melissa, it is something that we have been hearing for the longest time. The feeling that, well, we're here, we've been here many for decades. We have, many U.S.-born children. We don't have access to a work permit. We don't have access to come out from under the shadows. And yet, Melissa, they see as others are given so many of those privileges. Are you surprised at the fact that your article, which highlights something so obvious for many, for others seems like such a surprise?
You know, I'm really glad you asked that. I think about that a lot because when I talk to people who look like me, who look like us, then it's not a surprise. But you talk to white folks and they are really surprised. A lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals feel this way. I think you just have to go outside and talk to an immigrant, though. I think it does speak to like a bit of a disconnect between kind of like what the party rhetoric is and what people on the ground are saying. And I'm talking to people who are immigrants almost every day, so it's not a surprise. But I think a lot of people are just completely out of touch with what regular folks are saying.
Yeah, it's so clear, Carlos. I mean, this one on MSNBC has been talking forever about this issue, the difference between immigration and recent migration, the lack of understanding that there are really two different things in so many ways, two different worlds. How do immigrants see Trump's promise of the largest deportation operation in U.S. history, regardless of where they stand on the differences between immigration and migrants?
Well, Jose, I think for a long time there was a general tolerance for irregular immigration in the country. And obviously, Latino communities perhaps had an even greater tolerance than more mainstream communities. However, I think what was different this time is, number one, the volume. And we've seen those images of so many people crossing the border. People really felt overwhelmed by those images. And then number two, you all just discussed this issue of the benefits programs. I really do get a sense that those who came perhaps decades ago, even if they came through an irregular process, felt that these days the benefits are just too many. I even hear this in asylum and exile communities like the Cuban American community, where people say, well, the benefits are just too generous now. If people are coming to the country and they want to work hard and struggle like we did, we can understand that. But the generous benefits programs, the accommodations, I think at a time of high inflation, that really caused a lot of tension and opposition to illegal immigration to emerge and to grow.
Yeah, Melissa, and, it's just so clear when you listen to people. And it's just the fact of, what you were saying earlier, Melissa, about why have they not been listened to before? Of course, they're listened to by all of us because we are part of a community that has those kinds of realities. But I'm just wondering, Melissa, those people that have been here for many years that feel and actually have been in many ways vetted, right? Because they're here, they pay iting, they participate in as much as they can. How do they see Trump's speaking of the largest deportation force in history? How do they see that? And do you think they see that affecting them?
Yeah, so I asked people this, and over, what I hear from folks is that they don't think Trump is talking about them. They think that people who have been here for a long time, who have been working quietly, who don't have criminal records, will not be touched, even though Trump promises mass deportations and hasn't said he's going to single anybody out. They also have heard in Trump's rhetoric kind of this increased attention to the newer arrivals, the so-called like Biden migrants. And so I think they're maybe wishfully thinking that whatever Trump does will affect newer folks and not them.
Melissa Sanchez, I thank you for being with us, and I thank you for that article. Carlos Curbelo, thank you as always.